To commence, maybe you can tell me a bit about yourself, because I know you as a person from AI, but I suppose that's the identity you recently adopted, and how did you come to that? Maybe you can tell me about it as well.
Hello, thank you for the invite. I'm really pleased. The podcast brings happiness. We haven't started yet, but we're already happy because of the genuine chat we had before recording. You know what? My story is quite long and complicated, so I probably won't take up that much time, but generally, I have managed and still manage IT projects for a long time, and occasionally, due to the workload, I've had to automate and accelerate certain tasks. I also work at the university, so sometimes I say that I stand on two legs, one leg in business, one in science. Additionally, as a result of the overwhelming workload, I initiated the automation of certain tasks, employing tools like Jasper, Ridasonic prior to the advent of the AI revolution, chat systems, and other similar technologies. Have started. In total, I think I was one of probably several thousand first RDA adopters, for example, Ridasonica. So that's where this interest came from, and at some point, my friends pushed me, hey, start publishing about it, start talking about it, start training about it. And so it appeared. At this very moment, it is still unbelievable for me what happened to me on LinkedIn, because in nearly a year, on the 20th of February, it will be precisely 1 year since I started publishing on LinkedIn each and every day without fail, without missing a single day. I achieved a total of 2.5 million views and 17, I am unsure of the current count, but there are approximately 600,000 followers. This is a significant number for Polish LinkedIn, especially considering that I do not have a presence on any other media platforms. Regarding bigger accounts, some channel from other social media platforms, but I'm not on other platforms at the moment. To me, it appears as a good result. I also educate about AI, conduct training, and collaborate with companies in AI communication and productivity. I love doing it, in short. It's a positive outcome that brings me joy. Overall, I find it fulfilling to contribute to the field of AI and share my knowledge.
All right, thanks. And we possess such an ingenious strategy to not just discuss it, but also to take action. And we are desirous of utilizing AI to convert this podcast into English. That is the plan. That is the plan. In my opinion, there is no reason why it should not work out. I truly believe in its potential. Based on my understanding, it is not overly difficult either. I also depend on your help in comprehending this issue. Your assistance is crucial to me. As you mentioned, it is highly probable that we will utilize Huggin for this, most likely, but not guaranteed. Maybe, unless you know more tools, so we're familiar, right?
Most likely Hygiene, with an immediate disclaimer for those of us observing us in English that it is not yet a flawless solution and still has room for improvement and refinement in order to meet all the requirements and expectations. I have such a thought at all, I don't know if you agree with me, that today, let's agree that all these AI solutions, or even these no-code ones, are similar to babies in terms of their development and potential, in the sense that they were not present a moment ago, and we have extremely high expectations of them. Once we likely waited for 15 years for our brick in the phone, that is the phone, to have the capability to capture a photo. I'm up for anything, and it was okay for us to wait that long. Today, as you know, I don't know, Midjourney will generate 7 inches. No one says anymore that it generated. Sometimes it may be your fault, maybe not from this version. Maybe you don't prompt it well, but we say it right away and it sucks, and so on. And it may turn out that in 2 days, all these solutions will be phenomenal. And this is such a timeline that it's not 2 years, 10, 15 years, but a few days, a few weeks, a few months. However, I must provide a disclaimer based on my tests and the tests conducted by the companies I collaborate with that Hagen is an exceptional individual displaying remarkable qualities, but like anyone, he is not without imperfections. Oh yes, that is indeed a very good diplomatic term. However, there is a viable solution that can be obtained at a relatively low cost of just a few, maybe even $12. Undoubtedly, it is contingent on the package, but let's imagine a situation now that we have established a training company of our own. Let's imagine you and I are the owners of a training company, and we provide remote training to people. This is one. And two, for example, that we have a training platform where individuals record different trainings for us and so on, and then our customers purchase access to them. And we do it in Polish. And now imagine that thanks to such a hideout, for those few dollars, I simplify the matter because it would cost more, but suddenly you are global. We can have a conversation, you and I, in the Japanese language. We can market our training to Japan in the Swahili language. In which language do you like to dine? So, When weighing quality against globalization, it seems to me that maybe I might say it too harshly, but perhaps it doesn't really make sense to discuss sometimes that the quality may be a bit worse, especially considering the impact of cultural diversity on culinary experiences and the subjective nature of taste preferences. Because we have the ability to scale faster.
But what's the alternative, right? Question.
Yes, however, that's what you guys are probably doing great as well, which implies that when you create a minimum viable product, MVP, you simply need to stuff it, let it go, then we jump out of the plane, then we'll consider whether the parachute is there or we'll sew it ourselves. And today, there are frequently such discussions happening. Okay, these solutions are of poor quality and lack maturity. My argument, which may briefly annoy someone, is that the solutions have great potential, but we may not know how to fully utilize them yet. It's possible that these solutions are still in their early stages and won't require a long time to develop into mature and effective solutions. They will only need perhaps around 18 months or possibly around 18 weeks, because that is the typical timeline for the development of these solutions in the present day. Nevertheless, a crucial aspect in all of this is cybersecurity, which, from my perspective, is a sore point that we frequently overlook, underestimate, and are reluctant to acknowledge, appreciate, and have an open and honest conversation about.
Expand a bit, because in the case of Hejjan, I understand that if someone unauthorized accessed this model and simply ordered to generate a video that says something, and for example generated the CEO of a stock company who says that now we are doing this and that, and the stock price would plummet. I actually perceive this issue. Could you please provide any other specific examples or instances?
Yes. So you commenced with a consumer topic. Let's designate it that cool, which is presently lacking in social education and awareness. As if at all. Prior to work, well, social, missing, none. I don't know about you, but I haven't seen such campaigns. There were scams on grandchildren, standard ones, but today a scam on a grandchild with 11 labs for $1, with Hayden for a few dollars. Well, in total, I can do it to your loved ones. I mean, you will call your loved ones. In your perspective, that is your digital twin, which someone will create in the basement for a brief period of time. There is no education in this. I frequently converse with my mother, who belongs to the silver generation, and she is highly knowledgeable about technology because she is also an enthusiast of Apple despite her age, and she utilizes an iPad on a daily basis. However, I reassure her, Mommy, I will never request any financial assistance from you throughout my lifetime. And I repeat it to her very often. She looks at me strangely. She says, why do you repeat it to me? I'm informing you, Mom, because I know I'm training from it. Nowadays, there are such possibilities that I will contact you in quotation marks. Firstly, in the context of such, I'm sorry, soft, I don't know how to name it, this kind of social awareness in this aspect. That's what I lack. It's not there, or maybe it is, but I don't perceive it. And if I don't perceive it, I'm in this bubble. I should be aware of it, shouldn't I? That's why I can't see.
Also, maybe appeal to everyone watching us, talk to your parents, others not so technologically savvy in your life, make them aware of lurking dangers. It's important to educate and protect those who may be at risk. I have also heard I myself put it off, and every time I remind myself that I finally have to do it, have such a conversation. And I have also heard that it is a good idea to establish some kind of safe word, that if this word is not said, it means that it is not me calling. And that would be a word from the top of my head, for example, a hippopotamus or something else that has to fit in this field. You must include in this scam circle.
Yes, however, take a look, Kuba. We are starting to delve into elements that we have traditionally associated with well-crafted espionage films from the past. Hey, mother, if the hippopotamus does not fall, it means it is not me. This is so hilarious, but it is true.
They go in closet, peacocks go in walls. Do you recall from classic movie? I don't recall which.
I have a distinct memory of reading, but also, however, these are things that are truly worth it. And look, this is in a social context. And if we do not have it in a social context, now from a business perspective, famous stories, where I also observe many things somewhere while undergoing training in companies, where I caution against it, where employees' data, some really such things that should not be everywhere, someone discards them in certain locations, which can pose risks. AI tools, but not the kind you would think like some Power BI, even for chat, but for some super niche one, which is not really known who created it. There is no terms of service yet, but whatever. No worries that there is no terms of service. Who would care about that, right? So then there is a bit of a problem in the sense that we don't know what happens with this data. So in a way, in this whole, but I realize that discussing it in quotation marks is not sexy, but in this entire AI discussion, I personally feel a lack of conversation about it. I don't know whether to refer to it as a cybersecurity umbrella. I don't even know how to describe it. But when it comes to these aspects, there is a need to address them. To additionally raise awareness among individuals, employees whom I don't know, in the event that we agree to it, hey, can you utilize it? Under what conditions? No, usually, right? If someone violates these conditions as the company boss, you are protected. We won't permit it. However it sounds, even legally. I have had many situations where I trained companies and a certain company ordered a series of trainings in the sense of the same ones, only there were so many employees that they wanted it to be live with Q&A. Multiple. Later, e.g., someone informs me that in reality we decided to forbid it to employees. I mean, damn, you paid me a significant sum of money. And he says, no, Mrs. Mother, you have gathered excellent feedback. That's not the point. We just want to protect ourselves. We are aware that they will likely utilize certain items in that location. We are currently unprepared to establish protocols for this. Thus, we have prohibited it. Realizing that it may decelerate our progress to some extent and so forth, but because we are such and not another company, in accordance with such, and not another law and good practices and so on, we simply had to undertake it and safeguard our own interest with it. So this is such a topic. I may now hope that I will expose all AI experts and in this area, but for example, I often say that this is a crucial subject of discussion. A lot of companies don't actually require AI, or they do require it, but with such consideration that the initial phase is not to implement, just proceed with YOLO. Only know, however, such an analysis, such a true analysis, so that it does not end. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, I don't remember. From my understanding, there was a situation in Poland where a large online store implemented a regular chatbot based on OpenAI, and some programmers realized that they could still utilize GPT-4 for free at that particular time. And as a result, someone ended up receiving a significantly large bill for the services provided from the query to the API. So you have the ability to also cause a considerable amount of harm with it if not used responsibly. However, without a doubt, it is a somewhat unprecedented situation because I frequently participate in various events, both open and closed, and I often hear such a voice from the bosses of companies saying, you know, Maciej, we used to have a marketing department, but now it's been dissolved due to budget cuts. 7 people are 1 today. Someone else says, well, we had a department of 8 people there. Today there are 2. You are aware, and there are 2 well-trained individuals who have received training from these tools consciously and so forth. Spoiler, however, I often hear here a bit cutting off a certain discussion that someone may accuse us that about Jacek, we will all lose our jobs, screwed, and so on. The most common argument I hear is that no, we transferred those to other departments, or we made a proposal that you can work in other departments, and someone made a decision whether they want to or not. So in my experience, it is not leading to any layoffs at all. However, when looking at the statistics, it is actually indicating a trend towards layoffs. Observing these large technology companies, it is moving in the direction of layoffs.
Yes, these big tech companies are so unrepresentative in that they have always known that they have an excess of employment because their strategy is to suck talent from the market so that others do not hire them. So they have many people whom they can afford to lay off, and they do it in those moments, right? In such ordinary companies, let's say, there is not such a pool of people who are just there because they don't bother anyone, but they are not really needed, right? If you have an employee you are satisfied with, you also want to keep them. If his duties have loosened, you will find something else for him to do if he has been performing well so far.
Yes, definitely, yes. So here's the deal. I understand this scare tactic because it clicks well, colloquially speaking, but even if such a situation occurs, with a high probability, it will probably happen that in many aspects, this AI will replace us. These are not my words, but among other things, it is important to consider the potential impact and implications of this technological advancement. After all, Professor Dragan has also repeatedly spoken about it, many experts in the field of labor market, etc. However, I have my doubts about it actually happening. You know, it's scheduled for tomorrow at 12 o'clock. It's more like wishful thinking. When I look at the chart, I often like to display a graph depicting the history of manufacturing jobs in the United States spanning 200 years, and naturally I anticipate that we will observe a comparable trend in this graph, as it clearly illustrates. The revolution of blue-collar workers, and probably such a chart we will see in a dozen or maybe dozens of years in the context of white-collar workers, but I do not believe that it will happen overnight. I do not believe that, as if I think it will be a long process. However, undoubtedly, we are at a moment where if someone does not believe that the world is changing, well, then I would think about it and consider the implications of such a perspective.
He'll be amazed.
It is surprising because, it is like you say, in the sense that today, even this podcast, we will be translating something that Kuba, a few years ago, let us not go back further, 2 years back, if I or you threw such an idea at each other, we would grab our heads. How to do it at all? Damn, because the name you recognize is $1 billion project, and the magnitude of that is just mind-boggling, considering where we started from and the challenges we faced along the way.
And here you go, we can do it in a dozen. The only option was to translate the subtitles, to try to recognize the text, transfer it to Google Translate, and expect rather average quality of this translation.
And that would be only MVP. Nevertheless, it is also puzzling for me, and if I had to place a bet on the reality, quoting a classic statement here, I would probably agree with what Altman himself says, expressing that it is possible that we will see it soon enough, in the not too distant future. Unicorn of a solo entrepreneur, that an individual will autonomously establish a company that will eventually have a valuation exceeding $1 billion in the future. At some point, I can envision it as a digital product or a simple solution that will effectively address a highly specific problem, although it is, of course, a simplification. The question of legal analyses and other related matters remains, but accountants, being well versed in these issues, are aware of the complexities involved. However, I have a suspicion that this is also, I suspect, it needs to be done, and the question is on what scale.
If this is AI driven and everything is taken care of, the core of this unicorn's business, where will the entry barriers for the competition be, right?
Yes, that is also another aspect that needs consideration. However, these are undeniably fascinating times, and I possess intriguing predictions, albeit potentially flawed. I firmly believe that the current list of the largest companies will undergo a complete upheaval within the next decade, turning the established order completely on its head. In the sense that there we will have companies that we never knew at all. Well, an example today even mentioned 11 Labs, which, okay, the valuations are different, agreed, but where probably 2.5 years ago they only founded this company, today valued at over $1 billion, even though there were other solutions, of course. If I were to analyze it from a business perspective, well, here the marketing worked a bit, that video at the beginning, so, if all of this was chaotic, it was incredibly accurately chaotic. However, it seems like a cool, well thought out path, and it's proof that it's possible to achieve such a remarkable level of precision even in the midst of chaos, which is truly awe-inspiring. This is such a win at all for entrepreneurs. I'm not just talking about Poland, but at all. Example, walking young, extremely ambitious people who created a brilliant product. Well, let's say it's brilliant, and now they're scaling it nicely. They're gaining cool rounds. So, I listened to an interview with them recently. I think there are 50 people there, right? So it is not a substantial amount, considering, the fact that it is such a highly valued company in today's market. This is astonishing.
Tell me, such a question comes to my mind. From my own experience, I observe that even though I am immersed in this technological world, perhaps due to my metrics, I am unable to keep up with the development of artificial intelligence. I do not follow it as closely as I would like to, and how do you deal with it? Do you have the same problems or issues? Do you choose sources well? Is it the case, for instance, that an average person like Kowalski, it would be beneficial if you waited at this stage and observed what emerges from it, from this chaotic situation we currently have? How do you feel about it?
You probably do not expect this answer, but to be completely honest, I do not quite handle it. In today's fast-paced world, there is an overwhelming influx of numerous solutions and a wide range of novelties, making it incredibly challenging to keep up with the constant stream of advancements and innovations. I typically have such an approach. As I mentioned at the start, I have one foot in learning, one in business. So in the context of development, which is what interests me the most, which is prompt design, I feel good about it. I consider myself knowledgeable about it. In other words, talking nonsense. In short, I follow it constantly. Basically, I have designated slots twice a week where I just follow new publications, whether on ArcCiv, Science Direct, or Web of Science. I simply follow these publications, browse, check, test, verify, and stay updated with the latest research in my field. When it comes to tool news in general, I must say that I try to stay away from it very strongly. I make an effort to avoid such news as much as possible. I frequently wonder because we frequently observe individuals on LinkedIn. Here I can state that someone writes that he tested 5,000 tools. The question is, what does tested mean? How old are you? 365 days? I once calculated it. Testing 5,000 first is impossible. Secondly, it would mean that for a few months without going to the toilet and without sleeping, you would sit assuming you are testing its clay. And an hour is not a sufficient test. Therefore, in the context of tools, I am more of a supporter, and I always recommend conducting an analysis first, selecting the ones that will provide us with the maximum value, keeping the number of tools as low as possible, but ensuring that we learn them perfectly. It is as if there is a clue present. Therefore, I attempt to steer clear of tool-related news and prioritize the newsletters that I follow, which have a strong technological focus. If someone highly recommends these newsletters multiple times consecutively, then I begin to investigate them and evaluate their relevance in the context of cybersecurity. And in general values, because often it is like this, that you have, as I say, a king in different clothes in total, that you still have GPTK there, only dressed in different clothes, and in total, if you are clever, you spit it out from the playground yourself, or simply, you know what I mean, that in the end, it is actually an overlay, only that the sale was executed in a commendable manner with excellent communication throughout. I would like to share my carefully crafted strategy for success in this endeavor. However, in the context of, educational, it is remarkably challenging to find cool educational sources about eggs. Not an easy task at all, but rather a complex endeavor. I primarily engage in discussions about practical matters. There is a substantial amount of theory involved. Most commonly, this theory pertains to data science, not something you're aware of that is at a high level, correct? And frequently, we do not desire a high level thing, just how do I perform something? Where do I click? Why does it work like that, right? There are only a few things quite like this. However, circling back to the main point, this is my personal strategy for effectively dealing with the slash, rather than avoiding or neglecting it in any way, shape, or form. However, there is one thing, if I may address it in the context of coping, also super unsexy, super rarely discussed, purely psychological problem that needs attention and requires further exploration. Since you mentioned it, you have an extremely cool company, technological, with achievements, excellent feedback, and you admit that you don't handle it completely. I'm informing you that I also don't handle it completely, and to some extent, you don't need to handle it as much. I'm writing about it, and it has recently become a significant portion of my income, so one could argue that I also derive a livelihood from it, therefore I should handle it. And the tempo is so fast that I can't handle it either, and it probably causes a bit of FOMO in you and me, a fear of missing out. Damn, maybe the competition is doing it, maybe they know it, maybe they're testing it, maybe this tool is better, maybe that tool is better. And we descend into such, In my communication, I also make an effort to talk about common sense, in the sense that it is better to have one tool rather than multiple tools that may complicate matters and hinder efficiency. However, 100% is greater than 100 tools per 1%. The majority of us are involved with Microsoft in some capacity, whether it is through 365, the previous version of Office, or within the Microsoft ecosystem as a whole. Copilot Pro, which is not yet phenomenal, but probably will be in a moment. These are tools known to us. So when we have this AI in our familiar tools, it will be easier for us. So perhaps in this particular context, the value, in response to the second part of your question, is that sometimes I recommend that it may be worth waiting for that copilot in such everyday activities and situations where their presence can be beneficial. He is already more accessible right from the very beginning, in contrast to what we could read on Polish websites. It was unavailable in Poland in the sense that it was available, but you had to purchase a license. Jesus, I don't recall, but typically for a total of 3 million licenses. So how many companies would provide you with a license? Well, here it has already changed, but the information has spread on the internet. Copilot is available in Poland, but no one bothered to write that star anymore. No, today they are already available, but let's face it, they don't meet our expectations because we would like to write a prompt and have it generate for us. For instance, someone like Tom or Gamma, for example, in a PowerPoint presentation, even a poor one, but let him generate it for us, would be beneficial. It is highly probable that it will be in a moment, so it may be preferable to exercise patience in this situation. However, in the case of Kowalski, an average user, I am unsure about what I could recommend for him based on his specific needs and preferences. It's worth experimenting, but consciously. So we're going back to what I said about education, that I am lacking a bit at this level. Oh my goodness, my dear, I have no idea what to say. I am completely at a loss for words. In the sense, such education so that this Kowalski, when he tests it, would know a little about it. In the sense that, no, I won't be here, an expert, an engineer, a design prompt, absolutely not, totally not. However, it is important to have a general understanding of what, why, and how things are generated in tools like Chat, GPT, Bing, and other similar platforms, because you will likely encounter this common approach when using them for various purposes. Cloud, perplexity, irrespective, it doesn't matter, irrelevant. It is such that what he generates is always true, infallible, and super, right? However, well then, the information you encounter in the initial search outcome on Google may also be deceptive and entirely inaccurate. In this specific scenario, the implementation of this approach is absolutely vital and cannot be underestimated in its significance. So this education is crucial. However, it is definitely worth conducting experiments to explore its potential. In terms of employing these tools initially for lighter tasks and simpler applications, especially at the outset of the process. I have a trick, maybe inappropriate, but sometimes when I talk to company executives, big managers, I want to throw a little ball into their heads about data collection. I mean, I don't say big data, just data collection at every possible stage and in every process in their company. It's a way to emphasize the importance of data. And in their actions, I often tell them, listen, take notes about newly met people in contacts for the next week, because we all have those contacts in our phones, but very few of us actually write down that, okay, Kuba is interested in this and that. We talked about this and that recently. Then I meet you. It's hard to call it an internal customer relationship management, CRM system, but it's like our own mini CRM, helping us keep track of important details and conversations with people we meet. However, you're aware such details about yourself, and all of a sudden, envision we encounter in a couple of days, weeks. I check, aware that I will see you, or even without knowing, but meanwhile I retrieve my phone. I wrote down that you are interested in board games because you told me recently, and I ask you a question, Kuba, what board game did you buy recently? And envision the glimmer in your eye that I recall completely. And how do I express it when I demonstrate body? In terms of the power of these microdata, small data, which one author wrote about nicely on one occasion, so it will be easier for me to persuade you that it is also worthwhile to collect this data in the company and make use of it, everywhere, whenever and wherever possible. Therefore, it is a valid argument that it is worth conducting experiments, that this individual named Kowalski should engage in experimentation, but with a rational and logical approach. Perhaps the hardest.
Well, I appreciate your insightful and motivating lecture. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Tell me, do you say that in business if you also revolve around the IT industry, in software development itself, or in other aspects?
No, more like I also work together with an extraordinary software house, but more in the capacity of a project manager, correct? I do not personally develop software in the same sense as creating it from the ground up.
However, you are handling this particular environment.
Yes. And here's an interesting fact in context. I'll honestly tell you that when I train software houses, sometimes I have a proverbial, as they say, lump in my throat, in the sense that I get stressed. Because I think to myself, darn well, I am, a coder otherwise. Well, like I understand Python and so on, but that is a very weak level, is it not? And I am frequently scared, damn it. Those guys will devour me there. They'll twist me in countless different ways. What turns out, that's my experience, that someone who can create AI solutions doesn't always know how to, in the sense that they often don't spend much time communicating with that AI. I'm talking here about Chrome design, and you know very well that often without it, well, the quality of generation, whether it's photos, audio, well, it's still not satisfactory, but it also stems from the fact that the communication with AI seriously is practically indistinguishable from human to human, in terms of its limitations and shortcomings. However, in interpersonal relationships, given our inherent incompetence, things don't go well for us in that area either, just like in other aspects of life. Nevertheless, what I observe is that, however, if you inquire from me what examinations, I will not disclose to you because I do not recollect. But I know that somewhere I came across such research that developers are probably the group that most often uses AI tools.
I'm not surprised by this. It's mainly thanks to GitHub Copilot, probably because that's where it all started. This tool has been developed for quite a long time and has been in beta for quite a long time. And so even a few members of my team have been utilizing it for more than a year at this moment, more or less. It's still a year before the GPT chat even came out. I think it's already. GitHub Copilot has been in use, so it will be 2 years already. As we're just early adopters here, it's only natural for us to be at the forefront.
But how much time? How much time does it take, given that we consciously make use of it, provided that we utilize it in a mindful and intentional manner? And that is the main point, because you most likely have a much better understanding of it, even 10 times more than I do, that in the programming environment at the very beginning, there was resistance. In the beginning, there was resistance, a fear that it would replace us, that we would soon be unnecessary. Google says that probably 80% of the code is written by tools themselves, and everyone was scared. Regardless, it's somewhat like lawyers, who also had fear, and today I show respect to this group, because lawyers are truly a group that also had a certain distance to the egg from the very beginning, and today they take full advantage of this situation. Why? Because they know that they are able to serve more customers faster, analyze more data, and somehow increase their productivity. And it appears to me that the same, although here I am inquiring you more about it, that most likely in a similar manner is in the context of developers, because I observed resistance from the outset when I first noticed it at the very beginning.
Yes, I do agree, but my belief is also that it will not take away work, but rather allow it to be used more efficiently, thus enabling us to perform the work more efficiently and effectively. Yes, that's what I truly believe. That there is a myth that there are individuals who are 10x developers, that they accomplish 10 times more than the average developer. So now it is easier to become such a 10x developer if you master these artificial intelligence tools.
However, just like being a lawyer, being a trainer enables you to greatly increase your productivity today. However, it is important to note that we have not yet fully entered into such an era. I mean, we have entered, but not from a consumer perspective, so to speak. I am specifically referring to autogeny in the sense of utilizing multi-agents and its implications for enhancing efficiency and effectiveness. How can we access or interact with genuine assistants like Iron Man who can perform actions? Currently, we have some assistants available, but they are not yet fully consumer-oriented or perfect. However, when we reach a point where assistants can be as capable as Iron Man, we will be able to simply command them to perform tasks like sending emails to specific individuals, such as Kuba. In a casual manner, inform him that I am unable to attend, forward the message to his spouse, purchase a $20 present from Amazon, and that concludes it, following your single voice prompt. I believe this will be the opportune time, as such solutions are currently being developed today, not only in Poland, but they are still in progress, so to speak. So it is not yet the moment when they will appear there, but it seems to me that this will be the moment when an average Joe and an average company will comprehend and realize that the revolution is already present and underway.
Yes, because we both understand that it is simply a question of time, correct?
Yes, I think it's a matter of months. I think this will be the year in the sense of 2024. If I had to wager, we will already have at least some initial. I am curious, I will tell you honestly, but please remember that I am an Apple enthusiast. So take note, big disclaimer, but I wonder if there are any voices there that Apple is also working on its artificial intelligence system somewhere. Let's agree, Siri Apples is an object, smiles wide for many years. That's rather weak. But I'm curious, if Siri had those capabilities. So if it were that kind of lamin that is large and expansive in size, then it would certainly be a remarkable technological achievement that could revolutionize the way we interact with technology. Action models. However, the creators of Rabbit probably call it, well, wow, suddenly all these Kowalskis, we have it. Imagine even on a Mac in Spotlight, if you think technologically, they have everything. It's the puzzle that is missing, especially since they provide comprehensive solutions for various needs and offer a wide range of functionalities. I am uncertain if you will agree with me. We do not have knowledge of this, we make an assumption, but currently we are fully committed to virtual reality, ultimately augmented reality, and naturally we are all aware that we are all striving for that. In the sense, rather the world is striving for it. Question, is this the moment? Google has already tried, it wasn't the right moment. Microsoft made an effort, however, it was not the opportune moment for consumers. Nevertheless, HoloLens continued to be valuable in the business realm. I can personally attest to this, as my own brother is employed in the oil industry, where HoloLens is a regular occurrence. It is used on a daily basis, specifically on drilling rigs, where workers and engineers rely on it for their tasks and responsibilities. He is positioned on the beach somewhere and employs his phone to give instructions to the worker on the drilling rig about which screw to move and how to save on the drilling rig, regardless of whether it's oceanic or coastal. To transport you there as an engineer, the savings are of a tremendous magnitude, but it's not yet in a state ready for consumers. However, I'm curious if Apple will tinker with something there. I dare to say that if Microsoft, I don't know if you are a user of both, doesn't want to offend anyone who is listening to us, but if Microsoft realized that this system actually works, it's simpler, nicer, and starts up faster, it's user-friendly, and provides a more seamless experience overall. It would be interesting to see how Apple responds and if they decide to implement any changes based on the success of Microsoft's system. To be completely honest, I would seriously consider not going back to Microsoft, taking into account the fact that today it has integrated this Copilot, which is precisely what I miss in Apple, and I have the impression that they have gone all in on augmented reality, which is a major focus for me. I do not know, I will inform you. Intriguing reality, and that is also completely pleasant thing that in the context of this Vision Pro, there can be a massive implementation of artificial intelligence solutions, but I do not know, here I do not know. I acknowledge without hesitation, perhaps you have some experience, whether companies are willing to develop solutions on Vision Pro, because probably not necessarily yet.
No, we have not yet figured out as a human race what to do with it, what it can be useful for. It is still too early in the process of understanding.
It is still too early. I am waiting. I will not deceive you if I tell you that I am objectively considering buying it, but I am constantly struggling with thoughts, trying to find, as my friend says, that if I am already thinking about it, it means that I have already made the decision. I am just trying to rationalize it in my mind, weighing the pros and cons before taking any action. It is very difficult for me to rationalize this purchase.
And regarding Apple, I have my own distinct viewpoint on it. I am not a supporter of Apple, rather the contrary. Perhaps I am not an adversary, but I rarely make use of ecosystems, and I approach them with caution and careful consideration. I have such experiences from the world of electric cars because I am a Tesla fan, and for many, many years there has been talk that Apple is also working on an electric car and they will soon enter and disrupt the system, but years go by. And nothing is occurring with it, even though these leaks are quite credible, indicating that certain teams are actively working in secrecy and that prototypes are currently being developed. And I wonder if it will not be the same with the egg, that they would definitely want to get involved in it. Just a question, whether they are not already so far behind that it will be very difficult for them to catch up, because that's how it is with these electric cars. They may have realized too late that it is an interesting niche and future for them, and now Tesla has already escaped them too much.
I am also afraid of it because I am also aware of Apple's quirks, which means that every Android user laughs long and loud when they hear that Apple has only recently implemented widgets on their smartphone, a feature that Android users have enjoyed for a long time. As an Android user, I have been a big fan of Google phones for a considerable period, specifically the Pixel series ranging from the 2 to the 7 Pro. These devices have been around since the ancient times, and I have always been impressed by them. So here I am also concerned that they might fail to notice it, especially since, as I mentioned, I also have Surface Books and Surface Pros, but also the earlier one. So I am talking about computers, and I really hope they don't overlook this important aspect that could have significant implications for the overall outcome. Whether these Microsoft hybrids and hardware-wise, they are built great, as if, nothing can go wrong, as if the system still doesn't suit me. But if I were already suited and still with what they just only have the controllers, well, I think I would quickly stop being an Apple psychophan, because the Microsoft devices would meet all my needs and preferences.
The question is also whether now the top AI talent, if offered, will desire to go to Apple, or rather to some other companies that have already achieved more and have greater potential, so that something can be achieved quickly there, right?
Yes, especially, after that famous situation with Altman, there was probably a moment when Satya Nadella said if needed, he'll likely accept all from OpenAI into his firm.
Not terrible because, well, it's not bad,
It was a highly business-like affair. However, as you can observe, this is a matter that I have never come across an article, although there may have been a few, but unfortunately it occurred in the most renowned artificial intelligence company, which I sincerely hope has not garnered full attention from both employees and employers, simply because precedent in which employees have the potential to put the company at stake, risking its future and financial stability. From the perspective of the owner, this is an unpleasant precedent. Luckily, there hasn't been much discussion about it, but it is still a precedent. However, fortunately no one really talked about it loudly, but it is such a precedent that there may be an issue with our employees that if they agree, it may actually be a problem that needs to be addressed. And nobody mentioned or spoke about this specific sphere or aspect of this particular event.
It was conditioned precisely because they were pioneers and truly irreplaceable, which made them invaluable in every sense of the word. I think that such conditions will occur in few companies as well.
Yes, you are correct. However, it is fascinating to see how rapidly the AI world evolves, as you have already mentioned. The pace of change is so swift that at times we find ourselves wanting to simply observe from a distance and wait for it to align with our understanding. And in a sense, we can do it from a consumer perspective, from a business perspective. That suddenly a technology may emerge in which if you don't invest, maybe not fully, but in a manner that at least you will experiment, recognizing that you may incur losses on it, the expense incurred from refraining to experiment as opposed to being overtaken by competitors at a later stage could potentially have irreversible consequences. And this is somewhat like how we are dealing with an unprecedented tech that completely transforms everything, literally everything, because it may sound too harsh, but its impact is truly profound. Perhaps I should not, but it is extremely challenging to envision any areas where artificial intelligence cannot replace human beings. In the sense, if today we have scientific publications, okay, well, we can agree or disagree with them. We can nitpick the methodology. I am aware of that, of course. However, these findings indicate that in multiple aspects, including those of a more gentle nature, AI manages to display a heightened sense of empathy. Let's place it within quotation marks, the statement I am currently making. Well, listen, these are things that are puzzling, right? But again, I consciously want it to resonate. Well, in my opinion, we still lack education in the sense that there is no education at any level, and I believe it should be in schools, in companies. That's obvious, right? But on the other hand, look, in companies as well, there is a need for education, and it should be prioritized, in my view, to ensure a knowledgeable workforce and a better future for all. We provide education, but in terms of goodness, utilize it. You ought to be more efficient, accomplish more, and so forth. Cool, the company, that is the point. But it would also be suitable to say, hey, we are cognizant of this aspect of cybersecurity. One of the soft aspects that arise from the use of technology, and sometimes I also like to contribute my opinions in the context of technology, such as digital hygiene, which is probably a good term to describe the practice of maintaining cleanliness and organization in the digital realm. Just to let you know, it's a bit complicated because I'm uncertain whether you'll agree with me or not. I'm curious about your feelings, but I feel like when this AI revolution started, instead of spending less time in technology, we spend more of it because AI is supposed to save us this time. So in the end, we should spend less time in this technology. And my experience is that in the end, it's more.
In total, more, but with the hope that if we spend more now, we will spend less in the future. But it may be a chasing after a rabbit that will not end.
And then we will go ahead and install Vision Pro, which is expected to be a major event with lots of laughter. It's going to be such an interesting and exciting time, truly showcasing the immense fascination of the current era we are in. This is also, how many industries we haven't even discussed. Electromobility, you say you're a fan of Tesla, and there are more. And you know that in a moment we'll actually be able to operate a Tesla, consume coffee, communicate, and she'll travel to any destination you desire, right? Yes, 100%. And he will tell you a joke and he will talk about it, So, so many aspects, the whole TSL industry. This is an unprecedented change. I can't remember the technologies, including the internet, due to fatigue and forgetfulness. The term for such groundbreaking technology is disruptive technology. When asked about the greatest discoveries, I always mention one thing: the internet. It has revolutionized communication, information access, and business, making it an indispensable part of modern life. In fact, because everything will probably come to mind technologically and it is somehow related to the internet. Let's put it in quotation marks what I am saying now, but this artificial intelligence is such, let us say.
On at least 10 occasions, there is one disruptive row in the majority that is even more disruptive. And we are discussing these point applications of AI, and if we achieve AGI, then we have no knowledge of what will occur at that point. I am a proponent of the theory that it is similar to the event horizon in the case of a black hole, where we are unable to observe it and speculate about any theories regarding the potential outcomes when AGI emerges.
I also hold the same opinion because we will not make any additional predictions. We are predicting the limitations of human computing power, and the computing power, let's come to an agreement, of these algorithms is probably slightly greater. So I fully agree with what you said about the superiority of their computing capabilities compared to ours. These are truly fascinating times, without a shadow of a doubt, but I am uncertain if you will concur with me. Based on my personal experience, I have observed that, contrary to initial appearances, I am currently feeling somewhat like I am undergoing training or education in this particular area. It feels as though I am sitting in a classroom and suddenly a volcano erupts outside while we are in the midst of a history lesson and someone else is asserting that they are the one teaching this lesson. That many individuals are unaware that we are not connected there. I am not stating that we should all assume control at this moment or instruct it completely. No, just to possess this period of consciousness that something is occurring there that has the potential to profoundly alter our lives on all conceivable levels in an instant. I do not have visual perception of it. I am referring to my personal viewpoint.
I perceive that the chat has generated felines, a melody, and solved a task for my child, which is impressive. However, I do not see that you possess this knowledge based on the information provided. I guess we need some kind of global application, a killer app, which is still ahead of us, because the chat is just a substitute for us, and we require a more advanced solution to meet our needs. However, as the number of individuals interacting with it grows, the level of awareness will also rise. Such typical users, average individuals who are not completely acquainted with this technology, when this wave reaches them, then maybe this awareness will start to build up and gradually increase in magnitude and significance.
I believe it will occur when we reach the stage of having a fully developed voice assistant similar to Jarvis, the AI from the Iron Man movies. This will be the moment when we all comprehend that we no longer say, "Hey Google," or "Okay Google" there, but it will no longer be searching, just everything in order and fully integrated. So when these big action models are utilized on our phones, it appears to me that it will have a significant impact on consumer awareness and be a revolutionary development.
Yet another groundbreaking development for Tesla enthusiasts like myself is the mention of humanoid robots. In the real world, they will do your laundry or pack the dishwasher for you, providing assistance with household chores. Maybe there can also be a breakthrough in consciousness here. At the end, I had a thought that I can ask you because you are in such a situation that your insight may be intriguing. Just how do you compare and contrast the approach and application of AI in business and in science? How does it look from your experience?
You know what? Here is something interesting because I happen to train at the university using this method, and here I always approach education very carefully because I realize that we can have such a profound impact on students' lives. A tendency to utilize it in an inappropriate manner. We will refer to it as such. However, in this context, I am discussing the process of generating scientific publications, and if an individual is a mindful user, like myself, when I recall how I created and wrote my doctoral thesis, fortunately, of course, those were the times when I did not have to spend as much time in libraries, and instead I had to do it to a lesser extent, primarily involving browsing through numerous, if not countless, foreign scientific publications. Today, as a conscious user, when I upload these publications to a tool, I don't have to read them. I just ask if there is this, this, and this in this publication. It spits out the answer, shows me where, how I need it. Immediately, another tool creates a footnote. There is nothing wrong with that. It is not plagiarism, nothing. This is perfect. Well, here I have a productivity that is 10 times higher. However, the problem arises when we realize, in fact, perhaps this chat could write me some kind of introduction or some sort of opening statement. Well, in this case, I am actually opposed to something like that. So once again, the answer is complicated. However, you know what? There were likely universities in Poland initially that may have prohibited the use of these tools in certain locations. Today, maybe an example from a few days ago, probably SGH, if I recall, somewhere it came to me where they keep a document showing, talking about what is allowed, how to use it openly, cool. So, so today, absolutely not. Today universities, for example, my beloved alma mater, Rzeszów University of Technology, where, we train both students and employees in conscious use. We are already slowly creating subjects for it. In MBA, it is one of the elements where it is talked about. So here, hats off, we must acknowledge that when someone says that Polish science is not lagging behind, it is indeed making significant progress in this regard. Furthermore, you are aware that within the framework of broadly understood artificial intelligence machine learning, we likely possess the most exceptional experts and scientists globally, since in the end, the majority of scientists are the ones who develop these solutions. So here it still depends on the person, in the sense that it depends on how I use this tool. I will utilize it, but will I create it in that manner, allow him to correspond with me, and then I will record there that I authored it personally? Well, it is not completely ethical, feasible, but not entirely appropriate. However, if I employ these instruments, to enhance the pace of my work like I am informing you, like today I am uncertain. I would most likely compose a dissertation at a significantly accelerated rate. He performed a literature review more effectively than I did during my time, despite my belief that I completed it very rapidly, systematically, and methodically. However, in today's context, it would likely be 10 times quicker, indicating that there is nothing inherently incorrect with his approach. Moreover, you are aware, the problem arises to a higher level when scientists will not be required because AI will be able to solve every single question and every single problem. Isn't that right?
Yes. Then not only scientists will not be required, but also programmers, lawyers, and no one else will be required either, leading to a world where the need for these professions is eliminated.
There will be nothing. However, you see, this is also the discussion that very few individuals talk about. In Poland, fortunately, we have Professor Dragan, who openly and boldly speaks about it, is not afraid at all. However, I believe that there is a lack of sufficient discussion on this topic. What comes after this? Do we have a prepared system? Capitalism is coming to an end in a sense. Are we prepared for this? What comes next? Will we realize, suddenly wake up with our hand in the potty, that a new reality requires action? It will be too late at this point. And let us agree, the concept of work is not that it becomes devoid of meaning, but you are aware that it undergoes transformation. So the query is, do we already possess any pre-established schemes, any existing structures for what will transpire when we are genuinely less required, when our necessity diminishes and our role becomes less significant in the future? So then the notion of money, however, becomes inconsequential and ceases to hold any significance. There are such a multitude of things that Presently, the primary focus is on technology and law, but the focus is not directed towards the system, towards, I don't really know how to classify it, such an economy in any manner or regard whatsoever. Today, we are all technologically obsessed and also legally. These are the two areas of focus that I see. However, there is a lack of such focus unless, behind closed doors at those G20 meetings and so on, they probably talk about such topics, but not openly. But I miss that, in public discourse, don't I? I wish there was more emphasis on these issues in public conversations.
And thus this can also be a differentiating characteristic, where certain countries may obtain an edge over others if they make preparations for it and have a proactive reaction to the challenges that will undoubtedly emerge. There may also be some geopolitical reshuffling, where those who go through this moment will decline, and some will be able to move forward a bit because of it. With this positive note, I believe it is a fascinating conclusion. I would like to express my deep gratitude to you, as you have been an incredibly noble interlocutor, and our conversation has been highly engaging and thought-provoking. I also wanted to extend an open invitation to you to the Happy Podcast. If you ever feel like visiting again and discussing further aspects of AI, or when any new breakthroughs or developments in the field are of interest to discuss, we would be more than happy to invite you to chat about what interesting things have happened or are happening.
With pleasure, and thanks again for the invitation.